All right, let's dive into a story that's, well, let's just say it's got some action.
Definitely action-packed.
Yeah, Jacob's encounter from Genesis chapter 32, that whole wrestling match thing.
Oh, yeah, that one. It's a classic. People have been talking about it for, well, a long time.
Centuries, really, but why? Why is it still so, I don't know, gripping?
That's what we're going to find out.
Okay, so the chapter starts with Jacob getting some news, and it's not good news. His brother, Esau, is coming, and he's got 400 men with him.
400.
Yeah?
It's not exactly a friendly visit, is it? Especially with their history.
Right. They weren't exactly, best buddies before this.
Yeah, Jacob had tricked Esau, remember? Took his birthright.
Oh, yeah, the birthright. But that was ages ago, wasn't it?
It was, but in those days, birthright wasn't just about inheriting stuff. It was about leadership, spiritual blessing, the whole future of the family.
So Jacob had every reason to be worried.
Absolutely. Verse 7 even says he was greatly afraid and distressed.
Rightfully so. But here's the thing, Jacob doesn't just, freak out. He does something.
That's what I find fascinating about him. He's got this interesting, almost a duality to how he reacts.
What do you mean?
He makes plans like a good strategist, divides his people, his possessions, into two camps. Clever move. Minimizing the risk if Esau does attack.
Thinking ahead, covering his bases.
Exactly. But then, what does he do? Turns to prayer. Verse 9.
And it's not a quick help me kind of prayer either.
Nope, it's much deeper than that. He calls out to the God of Abraham, God of Isaac, his ancestors, connecting himself to that whole line of faith.
Grounding himself, you could say.
Exactly. And then he reminds God of the promise to bring him back home safely. It's bold,
It is kind of like he's saying, remember our deal.
Right. I did my part. Now it's your turn.
There's this boldness, but also this vulnerability. He knows he needs God's help.
And then comes the gift. Hundreds of animals, all carefully categorized, organized. What do you think that's about?
I mean, is it like a bribe to smooth things over with Esau?
Could be. Or is it a genuine gesture of, I don't know, reconciliation?
Maybe it's both.
Probably. But look at the detail. He even tells his servants how to present these animals, spaced out, a whole procession. This wasn't just some random gift.
It was calculated, like he was trying to make an impression, soften Esau up a bit.
Exactly. But even with all this planning, you get the sense that Jacob knows, deep down, this whole thing is out of his control.
Which brings us to that scene at the river Jabbok. Jacob alone, it's nighttime, and he's wrestling.
Wrestling with this figure, we don't know exactly who it is.
That's what makes it so interesting, right? It's mysterious.
Totally. Some say it's an angel, others a divine being. Some even think it represents Jacob fighting his own inner demons.
Whatever it is, it's intense. I mean, it says the figure dislocates Jacob's hip, but Jacob, he just won't let go.
He wants a blessing. He won't quit until he gets it. That's how much he needs that connection to something bigger than himself.
And it's right here, in this struggle, that things change for Jacob. Big time.
He gets a new name, right there in the middle of it all. Israel.
Israel.
It's not just a new name, though, is it?
No, not at all. Names back then, they meant something. They weren't just labels. They told you about a person, their character, even their destiny.
Okay, so what does Israel mean then? What does it tell us about Jacob?
It means he who strives with God. I mean, you can't get more fitting, right? After that wrestling match.
He didn't just wrestle a guy, he wrestled with something, someone divine, and won.
Well, he got a blessing at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, it goes deeper than just that one night. It's like his whole life,
Always struggling. With his brother, with himself even, and with God too, it seems.
Exactly. Makes you think, doesn't it? Sometimes maybe it's those struggles, the times we really wrestle with stuff, that's how we figure out who we are.
Maybe that's the point.
Could be. And it's not just about Jacob either. This name, Israel, it sticks with his descendants, It becomes a whole people.
So this one event, this personal thing with Jacob, it shapes history.
It does. It becomes part of their identity, who they are. And there's a thing about the sinew of the hip.
Oh yeah, how they don't eat it. It's still a thing today, isn't it?
It is. A physical reminder. From that injury Jacob got in the wrestling match. Pretty amazing how a story from so long ago can still affect people today.
It is. Like what's the word? A living memory. Passed down. But this story, it's not just history, is it?
Nope. It's about us too. All of us.
What do you mean?
We might not be wrestling angels out in the desert, but we all have those times,
Dark times.
Yeah, when it feels like you're up against something bigger than you. Could be anything, really.
Right.
Loss, tough choices, just life
Of our own wrestling matches, kind of.
Exactly. And Jacob shows us, maybe, how to get through it. He doesn't back down. He leans in, pushes through, and comes out changed. New name, new purpose.
And it affects everyone around him, family, future generations. It's like a ripple effect.
Makes you think about the choices we make, the struggles we go through. They matter, maybe more than we realize.
They do. But also, he wasn't alone in that struggle.
You're right. There's that divine presence, that something bigger. It's always there. We just got to be willing to wrestle with it, I guess.
That's a good thought. But what about the covenant? We haven't talked much about that.
Right, a covenant. It's important here. It's like the backbone of the whole story.
Refresh my memory. What is a covenant exactly?
It's a promise, basically.
Yeah.
A binding agreement between two sides. In the Bible, it's usually about God and his people, their relationship.
So Jacob, he inherits this covenant, right? From Abraham, his grandfather, and Isaac, his father.
Yeah, it's passed down through the family. But there's something about that wrestling match, that encounter.
It's like it becomes real for him, personal.
Right. He's not just receiving it, he's claiming it. But it's not easy.
There's that struggle again.
Always. He's got to wrestle with it, with the promises and the responsibilities, all of it. It's not just something given. It's something earned.
It makes faith seem more active,
It is. It's not just believing stuff. It's engaging, being in a relationship, even when it's hard, even when you got to fight for it.
That's really interesting. Makes you think about your own faith, how you approach it. But hey, before we move on, you mentioned Peniel earlier. Peniel, right. What was that again?
The name Jacob gives to the place, where he wrestled, it means the face of God.
So it wasn't just some powerful being. It was, God. And he survived.
He did. Imagine that, coming face to face with, like, the ultimate power. And it changes him, right? I mean, his hip, obviously.
It does not hurt.
But also deeper than that. The new name, the covenant, it all goes deeper.
Like he's saying, I saw God and it changed me. But does that mean, we all have to have some crazy wrestling match to, I don't know, experience God?
I don't think so. It's probably not about, actual fighting or visions or anything.
So what is it about then?
Being willing to, engage, to ask the big questions. Look at yourself, really look, even the parts you don't like, and be open to change.
So it's more inside you, growing, changing spiritually.
Yeah, something like that. And there's no one way it happens. Could be a tough choice you got to make, losing someone you love, maybe even questioning what you always believed. It's about, I think, being honest with yourself, with, everything, and letting go a little.
That's hard, letting go.
It is. Takes guts, and trusting that something bigger is there. But look at Jacob. He shows us it's worth it.
It's like that metaphor, you hear it a lot, Jacob's story. It's about anyone's spiritual journey.
Yeah, that wrestling. Getting hurt, but coming out different. Everyone goes through stuff like that, right?
We all feel lost sometimes, or broken, not knowing what's next.
And those times, the tough ones, they can be when we grow the most, if we let them.
You got to let go of the old stuff, even if it's scary, to get to the new.
It is scary. But that's where the trust comes in. Trusting that there's something more, like Jacob did.
He was Jacob the trickster before, relying on his smarts. But then he becomes Israel, who wrestled with God and led a whole nation. That's some serious change.
It is. And it reminds us, all that hard stuff, it's not meant to destroy us. It can make us stronger. In our faith, in ourselves. It can show us who we really are.
This has been, wow, a lot to think about. Thanks for diving into this with me.
It's been my pleasure. It's a story that keeps on giving, Keeps you thinking.
It does. And hey, everyone listening, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Hope you got something out of it. Keep learning, keep asking those big questions, and don't be afraid to wrestle with them a bit. You might be surprised what you find.